All right, guys, today I wanted to talk about what I think is the most interesting division in the Eastern Conference and probably the only division that actually matters in the East. It's the Atlantic Division, and I just kind of want to rank where I think the teams will fall when the season is over. The first team I want to talk about, and it's probably pretty predictable, is the Brooklyn Nets. Even though I think the Brooklyn Nets have honestly gotten a little bit more interesting as the years have gone on since those terrible trades that ruined their future and mortgaged all their first-round draft picks to the Boston Celtics, who honestly are reaping those rewards right now. But I think the Brooklyn Nets have actually been pretty smart considering the fact that they haven't been able to replenish their talent with first-round draft picks. They're pretty interesting. They've made some savvy moves. Last year, the big move that was really interesting for them was getting D'Angelo Russell, who I personally think has a chance to be really good. He was actually looking last season like he was kind of taking a corner and kind of figuring things out until he got injured, and I can't remember if it was out for the whole year. Brooklyn Nets fans, let me know in the comments, but there were games like when he played against the Jazz and other teams and other games that I watched that he just shows streaks and flashes of something really special. Now, I don't know if that means D'Angelo Russell is ever going to put it together and become what maybe we thought he might become when he was the second overall pick. But there's still a chance for him to do that. Now, he's actually in a good situation in Brooklyn, if he can stay healthy, to actually be able to get lots of minutes on a team that no one really expects anything from, and he can play well. And the Nets have actually, honestly, they've picked up some nice talent from out of nowhere. I really like Spencer Dinwiddie. He's just been a player that's worked his way up from, I believe, the G League. If I'm wrong, let me know. But he's worked his way up to become a really good scorer and really fun, and actually a player that a lot of teams might probably took some looks at, and he's going to end up with the Brooklyn Nets, but interesting to see how he can continue to grow with this team. I'm also really a big fan of Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. He's one of those players that if I'm an opposing GM, I would love to pull him away, because to me, he's that prototypical power forward. He kind of can play 3-4, but I just love his defense, and you can put him in at the 4 spot, and if he can kind of figure things out, he's one of those players that's enticing and that could become a really nice player for either the Nets or someone else if they can somehow find a way to get him away. But that's why I like what the Brooklyn Nets have done considering their situation. They've been able to find some nice talent and some pretty nice players considering the fact that they didn't have any draft picks to really do it. And so the Brooklyn Nets are interesting, but they're not going to be anything more than that is kind of mildly interesting. The next team, and this is the team that I actually really love, grew up as my second favorite team as a kid, is the New York Knicks. Now, if Porzingis were healthy from the beginning of the year, the Knicks would be super interesting. And I don't know if they're a playoff team in the Eastern Conference this year because Porzingis is going to be out. Word is around Christmas he may come back, but there's also a chance he doesn't play at all this year. But if Porzingis were playing, and with the talent that they're looking like they're surrounding him with, it gets really interesting in New York with what they're building. I love Frank Ntilikina. I think he has a chance to be just a really nice, at worst, a nice 3-and-D point guard, which is kind of an interesting position. But he fits in really well with their future. He's a talent that you can build around Porzingis, where you have length and shooting. And Ntilikina wasn't the greatest shooter last year, but it actually looked pretty good. And he got better as the year went on. And he's one of those players you could see becoming a nice shooter, nice 3-point shooter, spot up shooter at the very least. And if he can figure out a pull up 3, he becomes really interesting. The story of Summer League was Kevin Knox, who was absolutely fantastic, who looks like he has all the makings of a star forward. And you consider the fact that if Kevin Knox can play the power forward position, if he can play beyond that small forward and play 3 or 4 for whatever the Knicks want to do, they become really, really interesting really fast. And then you consider Tim Hardaway Jr. and some of the other players they were able to pick up. It's a nice team. They've got some nice pieces, finally. The Knicks are actually kind of figuring things out, and it's exciting. The league is better when the Knicks are good, and I want the Knicks to be good. And so when you consider all these pieces that they have now, where Porzingis and Kevin Knox and Tim Hardaway Jr., and if Ntilikina becomes really good, something interesting, And, they have some nice things to be excited about, and they have a chance to be really interesting. I like David Fizdale. I think that he has a chance to really take things to another level with them and connect with the players, bring some nice systems and defense to that team. If they can figure things out, the Knicks become pretty exciting pretty quick. And it feels like they've kind of finally gotten things right a little bit. Now they just need to let it develop and grow. If Porzingis has to stay out for a while, you may be looking at another draft pick. But with the Eastern Conference being so bad, who's to say that Knicks don't surprise and make the playoffs this year? They've got nice pieces. And if Kevin Knox plays in the regular season like he did in Summer League, then they become really, really good. And they win a lot of games. It's exciting to think. So Knicks will be better than Brooklyn for sure, but we'll see how good they are. Next team I want to talk about. And these top 3 teams are actually really close. These are going to be the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference and the top 3 teams in the Atlantic Division. The team that I think will fall third from these 3 teams, though, is the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, we all know how talented the Sixers are. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are premier young talented players that are going to carry this team through every game in the Eastern Conference. They're going to be top 3. No questions asked. It's just whether they can beat the top 2 teams in their own division and in the Eastern Conference. And we'll see if they can do that. They weren't able to do it in the playoffs. They had to get through Boston is going to be really tough for Philadelphia. And one of the reasons why they fall third to me is they lost some of their shooting. They lost Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova. And you might say, well, those who cares about those guys? Well, those guys provided a lot of shooting for Philadelphia. And when you have a player like Ben Simmons who really relies on shooting around him, where he can use all his different tools, his rebounding, passing, and driving to the rim, and incredible athleticism and size, you need to have shooting around him so that it doesn't neutralize his weakness, which we all know is the shooting. But last season, because they had that shooting around him, and albeit Ilyasova and Bellinelli had like career years last year, it was the reason why Ben Simmons was able to just get to the rim and do all the things that he does well. Without that shooting, does it become harder for him? Maybe. Joel Embiid is going to continue to be just a dominant defensive force, but he needs to improve a little bit. He needs to improve on the offensive end where his 3-point shooting could stand to be better. I think right now it's about 30%. If Joel Embiid can get that 33 to 36%, then he becomes unguardable. You can't stop him because he's got that mid-range game that's so lethal. He can back you down. He can shoot from 3. He's a great passer. He's a smart player. He's a rebounder. And then his defense, we all know that he's a defensive player of the year candidate every year. So the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be at the very least super fun to watch and interesting and have a chance to be even better than that. I just think if they want to get to that next level, they've got to get some shooting. So if they can find a way to get a shooter on this team, which didn't make sense to me actually why they didn't get Mikal Bridges. I did not understand that trade. And losing Zaire Smith with his injury, that sucks. That really sucks. And so you don't know how you're going to fill in the shooting that you're losing with those 2 players. We'll see how it goes. Philadelphia is packed with talent, so they'll be fine. They're also in the Eastern Conference, so they'll be fine. We'll see how they do in the playoffs. Next team I want to talk about, and maybe it's a surprise, but this is the second best team in the Atlantic Division, and that's the Boston Celtics. Some people may say, how are you talking about the Boston Celtics being number 1? Well, what we're going to find out this season is just how good Kawhi Leonard is. But that's not to say Boston may prove me wrong. I may look like a moron in this video because they have Gordon Hayward coming back, Kyrie Irving, and then we got to see Jason Tatum, who is a budding superstar, and also Jaylen Brown, who was fantastic in the playoffs and is only going to get better. Boston, and then Al Horford, little old Al Horford, who is a freaking plus-minus analytic all-star, just passes, shoots, probably one of the savviest, smartest defenders there is. Boston is going to be really good next year. And it's going to be interesting to see how Gordon Hayward comes after a full year off. Gordon Hayward might fit into this team really, really well. They might be relying on Gordon Hayward than we even realize. When Gordon Hayward was on the Jazz, you ran the offense through Gordon Hayward. And with Kyrie Irving, he's a good passer. I don't know if he's the greatest facilitator in the league or anything like that, or even on his team, but he's a good enough facilitator. But having Gordon Hayward means that he doesn't have to always do the things maybe he's not as good at or as comfortable doing. Kyrie can be Kyrie when Gordon Hayward's on the floor. He can use that incredible handle. He scores one-on-one. His isolation is incredible. He can just be that superstar scorer that we all know that will get buckets no matter what and no matter who's guarding him, and doesn't have to worry so much about running the point, which actually he was actually pretty good at and pretty fun. Every time I watched Kyrie, he did great. It was too bad he got injured or had his surgery or whatever. So that's going to be exciting for Boston fans to see Gordon Hayward come back, see how well he fits with Kyrie Irving. Chances are they'll fit fine. I mean, they're coming back from injury, so you never know. But it's going to be interesting to watch. And then Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you're going to have to figure out how to get all these guys on the floor. I don't know who is going to play power forward for this crew, but I do know that from Gordon Hayward's time in Utah, he does not want to play power forward. That's not something he's going to be willing to do. So is that Jason Tatum? Or are you finding ways to get Jaylen Brown to sub in and tell Jaylen Brown, who is a starter quality player, that he needs to come off the bench? That's going to be interesting. Is there going to be conflict there? Is he going to want more minutes? Who knows? Maybe he'll be fine. Maybe he's okay with that role, although we know that young players don't always want to do that. Older players like a Andre Iguodala, who went to the Warriors, he's already kind of had his time as a starter. And even as an older player on the Warriors, still seemed not super happy about coming off the bench, but they were winning. And so maybe that's the key with Boston, is you just have to win. And that's how you keep players happy. We'll see, but it's going to be super interesting. And the Boston Celtics are going to be very, very good and a lot of fun to watch. Just really fun across the board. And don't forget Brad Stevens in that system. That's just incredible. And his out of timeout plays are spectacular. They're going to be really good. But the team that I believe is going to be the best team in the Eastern Conference and actually doesn't get the love it probably should is the Toronto Raptors. Now, the reason I'm giving just the slight nod to Toronto, and I wouldn't be surprised if Toronto and Boston have like identical records at the end of the year, partly because both of them have to play crappy teams in the Eastern Conference, and that helps them both out. But the fact that they got Kawhi Leonard, who when he was playing was an MVP level player, arguably top 3 player in the NBA. It was like LeBron. I mean, top 4, top 5. It's LeBron, Steph, Durant, Kawhi. Harden, I guess. You can argue whoever you want, but he's in that conversation. He was that good, and he's been injured, and it feels like we've forgotten how good Kawhi Leonard is. Now, Toronto was the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference with DeMar DeRozan, who, when you look at the analytics, the analytics show that he hurt his team. They were like a negative when he was on the floor. Somehow they win all these games with DeMar DeRozan not giving them this positive on-court plus minus. Now you bring in one of the best plus minus players in the league. Easily probably the best wing defender in the NBA. Literally just grabs the ball from people. And he's going to be paired with Kyle Lowry, who was the best player on their team last year. That gets really interesting. And they also have young players that are going to improve. I feel like OG Anunoby was one of the steals of the draft. We had one of the best draft classes last year of all time, including Ben Simmons from the year before. He's not part of the draft class, but he played with them. But OG Anunoby quietly was like a top 5, top 6 rookie in the NBA. He's a great defender. He has spurts and shows flashes of a great shot, and just his physical prowess is really exciting. I wanted him on my team, the Jazz, but we didn't get him, and it hurt my feelings. We wanted him, but we got Donovan Mitchell, so I'm happy. But OG Anunoby is going to be that much better for Toronto. You've got Kyle Lowry, who is great and is still going to be great. And then you add Kawhi Leonard, who is going to be just a fantastic force on the floor for them. Toronto is going to be interesting. They are going to win a lot of games. Kawhi is going to literally snatch the wins from other teams, and he's going to be a playoff monster as well. Don't forget, the one guy that LeBron James did not like playing against and gave him trouble was Kawhi Leonard. And the one team that struggled to beat LeBron James was Toronto. So it's almost poetic or tragic, I guess, that they get Kawhi Leonard after LeBron leaves. I promise you, if that Kawhi Leonard was on this Toronto team, they probably are in the Eastern Conference Finals and maybe beyond, because Kawhi Leonard is that good. Now, this is all depending on if Kawhi Leonard is healthy. Can Kawhi Leonard play? Was it all true that he was injured? Was it not? Was he lying? It's going to be crazy. And the fact that Kawhi Leonard doesn't say anything means you don't know. So it'll be interesting to see if Kawhi Leonard plays, how well he plays. He came back for 9 games with the Spurs and did not look great. And that's probably because he was hurt. But all signs are pointing to that he's ready to go. And he's going to play for Toronto. He needs to play well. He needs to prove to the Lakers, if he's going there, or to Toronto to re-sign him, that he's healthy. And so it'll be interesting to see. But Toronto, you are interesting, and I am going to watch you, even in your weird camo uniforms and whatever. But anyways, guys, tell me what you think. Am I wrong? Am I a moron? You probably already writing it right now in the comments. But if you haven't, let me know. Subscribe to the channel. We got more coming. I'm losing my voice. Just like to subscribe. The NBA season's around the corner. It's ready to go. Talk to you later.